Hello, everybody. Today I'm going to interview Dawn Heiderscheid. She's an occupational therapist and the owner of Aurora Independence. As a practitioner who also manages her own autoimmune diagnosis, she's well aware of chronic conditions and their impact on people's lives. She provides outpatient care with a twist. She brings the therapy to the community, and her goal is to assist her clients in achieving and maintaining independence within their home. Dawn, thank you so much for being here today. How are you?
I'm good. It's such a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for including me in this summit.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's start with you telling us, who are you? Tell us about yourself a little bit.
Yeah, as you said, I am the owner of Aurora Independence. It is a mobile outpatient clinic. So essentially, I'm outpatient, but concierge. So I come to people's homes. It gives me a unique perspective to actually see people in their natural environment, is probably the best way to say it. And what I think a lot of people get confused is they hear the word occupation and they're like, oh, I already have a job. I don't need you. But as occupational therapists, we focus more on occupations as being something meaningful that fills your day. So for some people, maybe that's golfing. For others, it's knitting. We basically try to find out what's going to drive you. What are your current abilities and where do you want to be in life? And we try really hard to sort of reconcile those two often conflicting points of view. Some people want to be the marathon runner and they're wheelchair bound. So how do you reconcile that? How do you get that person to feel like they're hitting their goals? We combine comprehensive assessments and personal factors such as your range of motion, your strength, your balance, and a lot of environmental factors to try and increase and maintain that independence. So when we focus on aging in place and the aging process, we look at both like typical and non-typical long-term goals. And we try really hard to look at a person's personal factors and do that. And from a personal level, I love horses. I actually train dogs on the side. And like you said, I have rheumatoid arthritis. So I'm pretty aware of what it feels like to live in pain and have limitations that really impact your ability to do what you actually want to do. So that's me in a nutshell.
Is your arthritis is what brought you to doing what you do?
Yeah, that and a lot of other things. It was sort of a haphazard path to become an OT. I actually was an art teacher for 3 years before I went back to school to become an occupational therapist. But yeah, I've had rheumatoid arthritis since I was about 14. So there was a good portion of my life where I could not even zipper my own coat. I couldn't open jars. It was really difficult. And I realized that when I worked with an OT, they kind of helped me figure out how to fix that and become a functional adult. And now with medications, I'm functioning much more typically, I guess. I kind of forget that I have it, which is something I really want to be able to offer my clients as well. I want them to feel like their disease processes are not impacting their everyday life.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you specialize in aging in place. Can you tell us more about that?
I would love to. So one of the first things I think people think about is aging in place means old. And it's not exclusively for those who are receiving like AARP benefits. But I will say if you are, you should definitely be looking into this. But really what it means is preparing ourselves and our home for whatever aging may mean for our condition. So whether it means in 3 years, where are we versus 10 years, where are we? We want our homes to be ready to receive us so that we can choose to live where we want for as long as we choose. For MS in particular, I think it's actually reconciling that difference again about where they are currently. How are we currently functioning with our disease process and how we may function as time goes on? It's difficult for people to anticipate what relapses or, remissions may look like. So we want to try and prepare our homes to be prepared for those, but also what comes with natural aging. So in the end, this is for people who want to stay at home, who do not want to be institutionalized for rehab once they've had a relapse or an exacerbation of their symptoms. It's for people who wish to maintain their independence and continue to work and function in all of their daily roles. So whether you're a partner or an employee, or you want to be able to knit or disc golf, I want those people to be able to live their life and do it in the location that they choose to. So I will say that mostly aging in place, I'm focusing on your home. There are some people whose goal is to be in a retirement community, and that's cool too. What I can also help them do is that it's all about your choice. So today we're going to focus a little bit more about how to modify like your own home. But again, know that an aging in place specialist can also help you through the process of how you get to a retirement community, if that's a goal of yours. So aging in place kind of covers a lot of things, but like I said, essentially it's letting you choose where you want to live for as long as you want to live there.
So basically creating possibilities that if you're not prepared for, you might not have the choice of what to do. You'll have to make a choice that might not be actually what you want to do.
Exactly. Yeah. And important. I think choice, it is the number one thing that helps you through living with any type of condition, MS particularly. I mean, a lot of your decisions are sort of taken from you when you have an exacerbation or a relapse of your symptoms. And it can feel really debilitating for people. So considering aging in place now might actually give you more freedom later, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and very important. So could you maybe give us an example of why this specific work would be important for somebody that does live with MS?
Absolutely. So I think it's a really great question because when I have done research in the past, I found that there's actually very few resources or services specifically designed for people with MS and aging that are readily available. I mean, even the MS Society, they don't give you a lot of information. They kind of do some, and it's haphazard, but unless you know the industry words, you may not be actually finding the information that you want. So what happens is with the natural aging process, it can actually interfere or it can mask or even exacerbate MS symptoms. So many of the symptoms kind of mirror each other to a point. So it's really important to consider that. There's no way to predict with any certainty how someone's individual disease is going to progress. We make our best educated guesses, but it's actually really difficult to fully predict it. So it's imperative that we kind of start to think about all of the challenges that may come with our homes and our lifestyles in both the present and future terms, because the natural disease process and the natural aging process, they're going to be occurring together, whether we want it to or not. And we really need to consider one. So, for example, we lose flexibility as we age. That's just a natural aging process. And strength can often go with that just because of natural deconditioning. So that's just a neurotypical individual. As they get older, flexibility decreases, strength tends to go with it, even though it doesn't have to. So with someone with MS, they may already have decreased flexibility, and they may already be starting with decreased strength, and they may already have some deconditioning. So now they're kind of at, I don't want to say a disadvantage, but they're at a different starting point than somebody who may be more neurotypical and don't have a chronic condition. So what we want to start looking at is the environment. So how many steps do you have to enter? What floor is your main bathroom on? Will you need a walker? Do you use a walker? Do you intermittently have a walker? Or is the plan that maybe one day you're going to need a wheelchair? In which case, how wide is your doors? What kind of floors do you have? Again, how many stairs do you have to get up to like your bedroom where you're going to be sleeping? So we have to consider the environment. We also really need to consider psychosocial aspects. So what's your buy-in? Do you believe that this is a problem? Are you kind of depressed where you are in your current situation that thinking about aging in place just kind of feels like too much to do? Is your disease process taking so much of your time and energy that just like you just can't think about it? So it's good to take stock of where you are mentally in the process. Additionally, what's your financial concerns? Where are you? I mean, some of us are on very expensive medications that, we really plan our whole financial route around that medication's injection. So really, can you do a whole home modification and go floor to ceiling, rip it to the studs and do what you want? Or are you someone that's going to need to be able to do it in smaller doses? Something that's $20 here, a little change there, something that sort of prepares you. And also, I really tell people with MS that you want to start thinking about your independence level. Where are you right now? Sometimes you're independent, you're able to get yourself bathed, dressed, you just have to modify your routines a little bit, and that's fine. But what about in 10 years? Or what about when you have an exacerbation? Do you suddenly have friends who have to come and cook for you a little bit more? Do you have family that stays with you for a week or two? You want to consider that level of independence in your future planning. So is there a space for a caregiver to spend the night if they would like to? Maybe they don't need it now, and maybe your exacerbations aren't so terrible that they have to stay with you at all times. But what about in 5 years? Or what if your exacerbation is a really particularly bad one? Will there be a space for them? Will they feel comfortable there? How about what's your bathroom space like? Is it big enough for a second person to be present if they need help, if you can't reach your back? Can someone come in and do that for you? Is there a way for you to stay covered and keep your dignity while they're helping you? It's really, really important to consider all of these aspects, especially with MS, because, man, we tend to plan for where we are currently. We don't always plan for where we could be because it's so far away and we really, really don't want to think about it. But again, with MS, I think that because the 4 different disease processes kind of go such different ways for some people, it's actually really important to consider because those so far away situations may actually be a lot closer for us than we think. So if you guys don't mind, I'm going to talk about a really, really concrete example of what this is and why I think aging in place for MS is so, so important. It gives you control, and having control of your disease process, like we talked about, is so incredibly important because it helps you have a positive outlook on the disease process or the condition process and how to live successfully with it, because you can. A lot of people do, and it shouldn't be a burden. So I have worked in the past in hospitals, and one of my roles as a therapist in the hospital is that people come in. I was seeing them on the neuro floor, so they were having an exacerbation, they're receiving an infusion, they're being followed by their neurologist. And the neurologist may ask me as an OT to come in and do an assessment of all those environmental, psychosocial, financial things and try to help give them a snapshot of what I think that person's safest discharge will be. And having a chronic condition, some of these people come in and they're like, hey, I was a marathon runner. I was working 12 hours a day. I took breaks here and there and it's fine. But, this and that. And now I come and I'm like, all right, cool. Get out of bed. Let's go to the bathroom. Let me make sure that you can walk. And suddenly they're like, I can't even get out of bed. And I'm like, okay, let's talk about it. Because now suddenly this person who was a marathon runner or walking 15 blocks to their job or being able to get in and out of their car is currently unable to do so because of their exacerbation. I mean, this is real life situations. And I'm the bearer of the bad news. I have to tell them, hey, your 3-story townhome, it's not safe right now. It's not safe. I have to send you, or I would recommend that you go to a rehab facility for 2-3 weeks. And I mean, let's think about it. Even in COVID, 1, those are cesspools of potential, COVID exposures. And 2, you're away from your family. You're not in your own home. You're not doing your normal routines. So I become the bad guy because I'm like, yeah, but if you fall on the stairs, then you're going to come into me with like a head injury. So we have to kind of weigh those balances. And sometimes people go to a rehab facility and they're there for a week and a half. They get their tune-up, they go home and they're perfectly fine. For some people, this exacerbation may be a new baseline. And it's a much different conversation when I talk to somebody who has thought about aging in place, where they're like, oh, yeah, I have a 3-story townhome, but don't worry. I have a stair lift. I have a walk-in shower. I already have a shower chair. It's just in a closet somewhere. That's a much different conversation where I'm like, oh, okay, well, we can get you an ambulance ride that'll get you into your home. And then it sounds like once you're in your home with some help, you'll be fine. That person gets to go home. The person who's never thought about it is like, I don't have a shower chair. I don't have grab bars. I don't have anybody who can help me. That's somebody that I have to unfortunately recommend that I take away their control and take them somewhere that they don't want to be. So I think with MS, it's so, so important to plan ahead, be prepared, and consider what the condition process may look like, even if it's really mentally you don't want to do it. Because like I said, it's a different conversation when I talk to somebody who has planned for it and someone who hasn't at all. So I think it's really important for people with MS to think about it, even just a little bit, just a tiny bit.
So I have an interesting question, because
Yeah.
I know that in the community, and I mean, I have MS, so for a while I was experiencing the same feelings I'm going to talk about. Fear is a real deal when you live with multiple sclerosis, because you don't know how it's going to progress. When it starts, really nobody knows what's going to happen tomorrow.
Exactly.
So, and fear is very unhealthy. When we constantly live in fear, we actually, it can affect our future. It can affect actually the reality that will show up, or that does show up in every moment.
Correct. Absolutely.
So where is the line between I'm going to plan my house for the worst, to I'm going to trust and I'm going to do everything that I can, that I'm actually going to take care of my body and not going to let myself, because I have a lot of tools today. It's not what it used to be. There are a lot of tools to not let the disease progress.
Correct.
How do you make sure you're staying somewhere in the center and not going to this? Because there's a lot of scary things in what you just said.
Yeah.
And it's more the possibility.
Absolutely. And you're right. And this is something that I do struggle with, because as a professional, I want to be like, be prepared, be prepared, be prepared. And then everyone's like, oh God, then I can't do anything because I'm not prepared yet, so don't do anything. I think the balance is finding a professional that you trust, someone that makes you feel good. So not that you should doctor shop, but I do think that if you have a doctor or a therapist you're working with that you're like, oh my God, I leave this session and I'm just feeling really anxious, find someone else. There's probably somebody else who can help you. So one, it's your support system. How down to earth are they? How do they make you feel? How supportive are they? And two, I think it's just kind of talking with your neurologist, which again, I hope you have a very good relationship with, and really having an honest, frank conversation with them. They have a lot of experience. They've seen a lot of people with your diagnosis, and also have seen how they've progressed. And sometimes they can say, oh my God, don't worry about it. Your diagnosis, chances of going into a wheelchair are really low. So when you're preparing, don't prepare for that. I think that it's really about having conversations, checking in with yourself, being really mindful. So if anybody hasn't talked about it before, but mindfulness is huge. Checking in with yourself after each appointment and after each time that you're like, okay, let me prepare. And then you feel yourself getting really anxious. Whoa, step back, take a couple days away, come back to it later. The other thing is that this preparation is tiny. I mean, it's as simple as adding a lamp, which will help you with your vision issues. You know what I mean? That's easy. That's something you can totally do. So I will go through with that. I think a few examples would be really, really helpful to help people realize that while I'm like, be prepared, it's a different conversation. I mean, it's actually not as big as people think. A lot of them believe that it's a full floor to ceiling renovation. And if you don't do that, then you're not prepared. And I don't mean that at all. I just mean, have enough lamps. Maybe you think about if you were to get a grab bar, where would you want it? What kind are there out there? So I agree with you. I don't want people to listen to this and be like, oh God. I kind of want people to realize, hey, this is a thing I should think about. There's really attainable, actionable items that I can do that will make it so much easier for me. And I don't want you to live in fear. And I think that's why aging in place is important, because anything that you're doing now for your MS is actually just going to help you when you're 80. So why not do it now? Because if you've got it, well, all right, you lived to 80, nothing happened. And now you're 80 and you're like, hey, I need a shower chair. Well, you've had one in your your closet for a while, or where you can get one quickly. So it doesn't necessarily mean hoard all of the materials, get everything ready, have your house there. It's just kind of having a plan. If this happens, here's how I'd like to handle it. If this happens, I'm going to do these actionable items. If this happens, I know that I can go to Amazon and order this and it'll be there because I have Prime. Things like that. So hopefully that helps.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing you saying is more of like, instead of living in scarcity that something may happen, doing it actually on the other side of it, like do it so you feel safe. So there's
exactly
in your life, in your space.
That's a great way to think about it, because if you've already kind of prepared for it, then when it happens, it's not scary. And if it doesn't happen, great. Maybe it'll happen to someone you know and you can go, here, take my stuff. So yeah, exactly. It's kind of just thinking ahead.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So now that we know how important it is and why it's important to understand and to implement, what are some concepts that somebody that has MS could start implementing right away to create this safety that we're talking about?
Absolutely. I think that's an excellent question as well. So like I said earlier, I think a huge portion of what people think about is these home modifications. But like I said, that's not a big portion of it. That's the most expensive portion if somebody wants to go and do all of it. But really, it's a lot about activity adaptations. So how can you kind of change your normal routine slowly, because we all have habits, and how can that help you be prepared in a way that is kind of non-invasive to your normal life, doesn't help you live in fear, but makes you more prepared and feeling, comfortable with everything. So this may be low cost, there could be high cost, there could be medium cost options. So I'm going to try and pull this together so it'll make a little bit more sense. As we age, we have something called retinal luminance. This is something that is just going to naturally occur and it goes down. So there's a relationship between your pupil, so how much your eye opens and closes, and how flexible your retina is, the thing that actually receives the light. An 80-year-old eye is reduced by 30-fold. So your 20-year-old eye and your 80-year-old eye with no disease processes whatsoever is just going to get kind of worse. It just sort of happens. This is why people need readers. This is why, you grandma, grandpa might have like lights right next to them. So that relationship is just a natural aging process. So if we know about it and we learn about it, we can start kind of being like, all right, let me think about it now. So with MS, that natural aging process may be exacerbated or more confusing for somebody who has demyelinization of their optic nerve. So this is a client I've actually worked with. She has a little bit of demyelinization there. She's been already struggling with some vision issues, things like that. And we kind of were sitting there. I was like, okay, so how can we combat this natural aging process that's going to occur on top of the MS process that's already occurred? And we figured, let's talk about lighting. Let's make this work. And she's like, okay, well, tell me what you would do. And I was like, okay, so pretend you're 38 years old. You've had MS for 6 years. You're kind of feeling really good about it. You've got a good process. Nothing's really changed with it. It doesn't really impact your normal day. She went out and bought her forever home. And she's like, oh, I can't wait to live in this home forever. And I was like, fantastic. Let's look at a few things to kind of consider here. I said, even if your demyelinization never gets worse, your eyesight is, because that's what's going to happen when you turn 80. We're all going to probably need glasses. So I said, let's kind of think about that and where your eyesight currently is versus where it could be. And we could talk about the progressive demyelinization that may occur. But either way, it doesn't change the actions that we can take today. So we looked at her lighting. And I kind of went to each room and I said, okay, let's place additional lamps here. Let's try to think about how you use this space. Are you using this space to read? Is this where you're doing your hobbies? Is this a place that you like to kind of just decompress for the night before you go to bed? If so, well, how many lamps do we want? What kind of mood lighting do you want? So I kind of discussed with her, this is your reading nook. Let's make this your brightest place. This is where you like to go, before bed. This is where you're kind of chilling and scrolling through your phone or just sort of decompressing and you do your nightly meditations. Let's not add lights in that spot, because who cares about your retinal lumens when you're in the location that you're about to go to sleep anyway? We want to care about it when you're doing something functional. So we figured out, okay, what kind of floor lamps would work? Is it better for it to be a table lamp? Should we have one of those lamps that's, right behind your head and you can adjust it based off of how you want to use the space? What kind of switch should we offer you? Right now, she can do the fine motor and she's got absolutely no problem because her dexterity is not an issue. It's just her vision. I said, but as we age, your joints get stiffer. Some people just get arthritis. And with MS, maybe you'll lose some dexterity, maybe you won't. We have no idea. So if we get a switch that works for an 80-year-old, it's probably also going to work if something happens with your MS. And she was like, oh, I love that. So we talked about, do you want to have the knob? Do you want to have the lamps that have like the foot stomp so you can use your feet to turn it on? Do you want to add, an electronic, like on your phone where it senses your phone comes into the room, the light just turns on for you. So who cares about the switch? Who cares what your fingers feel like? We talked about what type of light bulbs you should be buying. And so she was like, oh, do I have to go out and buy them all right now? I said, no, they're kind of expensive. Like just every time a light bulb burns out, buy this type of light bulb. So when you were talking about fear, I was kind of thinking about this example that I knew I wanted to hit at some point, because I don't want people to live in fear. I want them to know that these actionable items are super approachable. It's buying a new light bulb. It's when you redo a room because you're like, oh, it's not really working for me anymore, and I want to replace this chair. Okay, let's think about the chair. Do you want it to be supportive so that if you have back problems because you're just getting older, or because your back is one of the involved pieces of your disease? Let's get a different chair. Let's make sure that when you replace that lamp that no longer works, that it's a lamp that has a purpose for any process of your lifespan. So I want this aging in place process to be kind of so natural that you sort of just confuse it for being organized and creating good spaces. And you're not thinking about it so much as like, I must do this right now, or I'm not going to be prepared. I'm never going to be able to come home after hospitalization. That's not it. It's more about like, all right, let's just organize your space. Let's think about the function, the environment, and how you as a person are going to use it, and how aging may impact it, and how MS could impact it as well. So hopefully that helps make a little bit more sense of it all.
Yeah, definitely. I do want to ask you, from your experience, what are the biggest challenges that people that have MS are dealing with, and what are some steps that you recommend for not for prevention, obviously, of the disease, but like preparation in the house?
Absolutely.
Prevention of getting worse.
Yeah. I think overall, one of the overarching themes is fatigue, both primary and secondary. So primary fatigue is really from demyelinization. So that's the actual nerve changes that may have occurred in somebody's body. Secondary fatigue comes from deconditioning. So they sort of play off of each other a little bit. Primary fatigue really comes from a disease process, and you may or may not be able to change it, but your conditioning, you can. So that's just what those mean. So the number one issue, I think, is just that individual fatigue level, whether it's primary or secondary, and how that impacts people's ability to kind of maintain their household and their self. I have a lot of clients who come to me and they're like, man, I'm able to bathe myself and dress myself. I can get to work. I can do all that. But cleaning the house is so difficult, or it just takes all the energy out of them, and they can't go out to hang out with their friends, So their responsibilities are impacting their actual goals. And so, again, that's where we can kind of come in and we can start to think about really actionable items to sort of help that out. So in general, I recommend, as an overarching theme, centralize and get organized. That is the number one thing that you can do. I'm also somebody who's just really scatterbrained, and like to-do lists are really helpful. That could stress someone else out. For me, it's really helpful. So it's also finding out personally what get organized and get centralized means for you. To have 15 to-do lists is probably going to stress someone else out. But so, for example, I'm thinking about my husband for this. He dyes discs for disc golf. And before he centralized and organized, so this is somebody who doesn't even have a disease process, he was running up and down the stairs to try and dye these discs because he wanted to perform it on our kitchen counter, where if the dyes fall, it works, no problem, we can wipe it away. But he had to rinse it in our utility sink. So he's going up and down and up and down. And I was working with a client who had an MS at the time. And I was like, man, if that were my client with MS running up and down those stairs, they would be potentially flattened to the floor for doing a hobby that they love, because going up and down the stairs 15 times is not efficient. And if you have secondary fatigue, you're deconditioned that you can't go up and down 15 flight of stairs. And that's what he was doing. For him, he was like, it's exercise. And I'm like, well, that's great for you. But for somebody who might have a chronic condition like MS, let's think about how we can organize that. So being an OT, I was like, all right, I can't watch you do this anymore. This is stressing me out. Like, I bought him a workbench that's right near the utility sink. He has everything organized now. And now he's so much more efficient. So for somebody with MS, it's thinking like that. What are the completely unnecessary steps that you can weed out? How can we change your routine? How can we adapt your activity so that you're focused on only the things that need to be done? And we've reduced the number of trips you're going back and forth to your room, or how many times you have to run up and down the stairs for things that if you had just planned ahead, you'd have in your space. So we want to save you from walking around too much, standing for too long, because everybody is in a different place in their condition, right? So while somebody who's newly diagnosed may be able to stand for 45 minutes to do their hair, somebody else that may completely deplete them for the day, and then they have to take a nap before they get to go out or go to work. So some actionable items are for bathing. Get dressed in the bathroom. Bring all of your stuff with you. Some people like to shower and then go to their room, because it just is the way they've always done it. Well, change it. Maybe take the clothes in with you. Bring your lotion, your hairbrush, your makeup. Is there a way to change your vanity so that all of that stuff can actually be present in the bathroom? If not, maybe you create a secondary place where you shower, you lotion, you do all that in the bathroom, and then you go to your beauty location and you can sit. So you can do your hair, you can put on your makeup, you can, shave, you can do whatever it is that you need to do. There's also devices such as like toothpaste dispensers, shampoo dispensers. So if somebody's having dexterity issues, they can kind of just go and put their hand under it and it just comes out for them. So you can get as fancy as you want or not when you're talking about like your bathroom routine. But if you're not wasting your time trying to squeeze out that shampoo that just won't kind of come out, and you've got a device that's going to do it for you, well, now you've just saved some energy. And the goal is to have all of those little pieces of energy savers add up so that by the end of the day, you're like, man, I feel great. I don't want someone to live the way that they normally do. And at the end of the day, be like, man, I'm tired every night. I'm exhausted. If that's how you're feeling, my guess is that having somebody who ages in place, or an OT, or even your PTs, can come in and help you look at your routine, analyze like, oh my God, this is unnecessary. Let's change this portion so that it becomes a lot easier for you to just live your life. Man, I've got so many. I mean, if you go into your kitchen, I always tell people like electric can openers are your best friend. Buy one, get one. If not, get one with a really wide handle because it makes it easier for gripping. So you're not like squeezing this little tiny metal thing to try and twist, You really want to think about what are your current abilities? Where could they go and how can we make it easier? For home maintenance, buy multiple bottles of cleaning solution. Have the same set for each floor that you're on. It makes it so much easier. If you want to, put all your bathroom stuff in each bathroom has its own cleaning supplies, because there's nothing worse than when you're down in, I have a 3-story townhome. If I'm down in the basement cleaning the bathrooms there and I have to carry all that stuff up to the top floor to clean that one, and then I forgot the rags, I'm again going down 2 flights of stairs. And once again, if you have MS, that could be the thing that just kind of depletes you for the day. So automation is really helpful. Light switch that turns on, like we talked about, using timers. If you know that you always are going to go into this room around 7:00, get a timer that turns the lights on at 7:00. Because some of these houses, the light switch isn't by the door. It's on like the complete opposite side. I mean, here in Philadelphia, these houses were not designed well. And sometimes my clients are walking across the room to go turn one light on. And I'm like, oh my God, number one, can we get an extension cord and just leave that light switch on? Or two, do you have the money to purchase a sensor so that when you walk in, it turns on? There's so many cool devices out there. Get groceries delivered, especially if you have pets. again, that fatigue, I have a lot of clients who say the day that they have to go out and buy the pet food, the cat litter, or anything like that is the day that they just don't plan on going out to dinner that night, or they plan on not seeing their friends that night because they need to recover from it, because they had to drive to the grocery store. They had to get all the items. They had to carry it to their car. They had to unload it. They had to bring it in. They had to take it up the stairs that they have. Well, if someone's delivering it and you know that every 4 weeks you have to go buy dog food, well, now it's at your door and all you have to do is bring it inside. It's great. And then if you don't feel good, don't carry it up the stairs yet. Leave it by the door. Feed your dog from that bag. And just little things like that that are super actionable that make it super attainable to age in place.
Yeah.
These are long-winded answer.
No, but I mean, because we know that fatigue is a real challenge with MS. It's a real challenge. And there are obviously different levels. Some people are really, we know that people in a community sometimes need to take a nap after shower. Some people are not really, being challenged with that.
Absolutely.
So having the ideas and some things will support you in saving your energy is very valuable. So that was for fatigue. What other common challenge for MS you're familiar with and can offer some ideas?
Yeah, I mean, I think for when someone comes to me from a therapist standpoint, they usually come after an exacerbation or because they're really struggling with something. So it ends up being strengthening and balance are the next ones that I see. And when it comes to balance, I actually think that activity modifications can help a lot with that too. There's ways that you can actually build in balance training into your daily routine. So it's standing on one leg while you're brushing your teeth. I mean, it sounds so silly, but if in the clinic we practice standing on one leg to a point that I know you're safe doing it, I can send someone home and say, hey, on your weakest leg while you're brushing your teeth, stand on this leg, do this kind of thing. So I think that the strength is also a big part of it. And so is the balance. Again, I really think fatigue is the biggest one. How about you? I mean, you have MS. What are some things that you struggle with?
At this point, thankfully, I don't struggle with anything anymore.
Great.
But fatigue used to be big for me, and weakness. Weakness of my knees back then. I mean, I had the whole package. It was couldn't even walk alone, but.
Yeah, well, and I actually think that some doctors and therapists can kind of pish-posh that away. If they're like, oh, what time do you get up for work? How do you sleep? And they're like, oh, no wonder you're tired. You don't sleep well. And it's like, okay, but hold up. It actually could have been an MS exacerbation that was making your fatigue so incredibly difficult. Fatigue is something that as an autoimmune RA warrior as well, I struggle with. I mean, there are days when I have a flare up and a mile walk with my dog should have been easy. And now I'm just exhausted afterwards and I can't possibly think about like cooking dinner. So yeah, I think it's really important for people. That also brings up a point. You can use like crock pots and Instapots to make larger meals. So if you do have a fatigue day, who cares? You can still eat healthy, because I do think diet plays a huge, huge part in all disease processes. And lots of veggies. I'm not a nutritionist, but just from my personal experience, the healthier you eat, the more control you can have over your inflammation and also your disease process. So with MS, so it's important. So you don't want fatigue to get in the way of the healthy lifestyle changes that you really should be making and you should be following. So,
yeah, great point. Well, thank you for all of that.
Of course.
Yeah, super valuable. Anything else that you think could benefit our community?
I know that this is probably a little cliche and maybe some people are sick of hearing it, but really do not put off tomorrow what you can do today. So I really think it's important to think about aging in place is a lot of education for yourself. There actually doesn't need to be a ton of actionable items. Those are, as I already explained, some of them are really simple to do. It's just kind of do it as it's needed. But it's really learning about what you can do, why you should do it, and then actually when to call a professional if you need it and who to call. Because you want to make sure that you're not getting advice from somebody who isn't actually an expert on it. Like, don't come to me for nutrition. I have lots of opinions on it, but you don't want to come to an OT necessarily for that. You do want to come to me when you're having an incongruence of where you want to be and what you're actually able to do. That's when you call a therapist, like an OT or a PT. If you're struggling with, this fatigue that keeps hitting you and you're doing all the activity modifications, but you're still not getting the progress. Well, maybe that's when you need to make another appointment with your neurologist. I mean, it sounds silly, but all of these things actually play in to that larger concept of aging in place. Taking control of your life and your diagnosis is really, really helpful, because life is different when you can control your environment and you are actually in the driver's seat. Again, back to that example of somebody in the hospital, I want you guys to be in charge of your condition. So I want you to be driving that mission. I want you to know, like, these are the things that I want to work on, so that when someone like me comes in and meets you for 15 minutes and has a lot of opinions about what you should be doing, you are somebody who's like, well, actually, I thought about that point. I thought about this one. I've done that. Because when you're in that driver's seat, that control can help really make you live with MS successfully. If you're letting the world just happen to you, I'm not sure that you're going to feel super great. It can really add into depression and some of that other stuff. So do it today. Don't wait till tomorrow. That would be my biggest.
All right. Good advice. Thank you for that. And I know that you prepared a special gift for our listeners, for our MS community. Share with them what it is.
Yes. So I'm going to be providing you guys with a URL to a YouTube video. That way you can watch it as many times as you need to, pause, whatever. And it's actually going to have a lot more actionable items of things that you can do in your own home, your own routine, and your own life in order to kind of be prepared. And I don't want you to live in fear, so don't be freaked out by it. All of this is stuff that you can kind of take a checklist and decide, yep, I'm going to address this, I'm going to address this, I'm going to address this, and I'm going to ignore all the others for right now. So it'll be a short little video that just kind of gives you guys more actionable items, things that you may not have considered in your house before, and ways that you can actually address it. I try really hard to include low cost, medium cost, and high cost options as well, because again, the financial piece plays a part in everybody's disease process. So hopefully you guys enjoy it.
This is a wonderful gift. Thank you so much for preparing it, especially for the community. It, I believe, was very, very helpful and beneficial to the listeners. I hope you all enjoyed it. Dawn, thank you so much.
Thank you. I really appreciated being here. And again, if anybody has questions, concerns, comment on the video. I'll do my best to try and reach out and answer any questions.
That's wonderful. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.